Because in the end, you could have a great idea, but again, if you're successfully doing a communication plan on different platforms, you still need to sell, right?
Yep.
And they have to complement you. I always sit there and say the best organizations are marketing-led, sales-driven.
Hello, fellow entrepreneurs. Welcome to another edition of the Startup Sandwich Podcast. I'm your host, Ric Phillips. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine, a marketing expert, author, speaker, lecturer, Sanjay Dhebar. How are you?
I'm excellent. Yourself?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a lot about your background, how you got into entrepreneurship, what you're doing these days.
Sure.
But first, I want to start with a burning question. A lot of people out there, entrepreneurs, are thinking marketing, it must mean I need a viral video and then I can just, my business will explode.
Yeah.
True or myth?
Oh, I think it's a complete myth. Listen, if you can go viral, that's awesome. But going viral on something as an entrepreneur, assuming you have the skill to do something outrageous that people are interested in or come up with data or some statistic, whatever it is the equivalent of going down to a variety store or Shoppers Drug Mart and buying a scratch ticket and winning. It's so rare, it's so difficult to do, and it's so competitive. So as much as we all have the ambition to do something that's outstanding that people want to, eventually buy from us, is not something to be dependent on.
I'm going to follow up with another similar question. And this is, I think there's a trend that a lot of people really think that marketing equals social media equals marketing. Perhaps social media is getting to be a bigger and bigger player. But what's your opinion as someone who's really, really studied marketing on a deep, deep level from many sides? How important is the social media stuff?
Yeah, so it's actually very, very important for various different reasons. But let me, Rick, distinguish between the two. There's marketing strategy. So there's pure marketing and, teaching about frameworks and perspectives and, targeting, like you get into the research. So you get into the fundamentals of marketing and it's background people don't know enough about. And then there's a part around digital marketing, specifically on communication or on platforms, sharing your ideas, timing to launch, budget, targets. So there's two different parts to it around kind of what you want to do in the planning and the other parts on the actual communication and the different platforms you use. If you actually, think about it, digital marketing has allowed a lot of entrepreneurs to actually have a better chance of succeeding simply because it's free or affordable at the beginning to access versus traditional days of my growth as an entrepreneur 30 years ago where, I had to buy an ad on the DVP or a television or radio, traditional marketing, which was very expensive and had low market of entry. So I think that it gives people a chance, but a complementary effort. I think that marketing supports your ambition, gets your message out, but you need to complement with a lot of different parts, which I'm sure we'll talk about today.
Oh, we can talk about anything you like in this world.
Yeah.
We got lots of good questions for you. The idea that marketing is super important to an entrepreneur. First of all, let's just assume that's true, that the entrepreneurs know that. So if you're advising or coaching someone, what's the number one, number two steps you're going to tell that person to do?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, the first thing is like, if you want to market, it's going to be you, your brand, your product, your service, or someone else, right? Because I'm a big believer that you may have a great idea as a business person, as an individual, whether you have a startup and you have an intellectual property that, helps remove waste environmentally friendly from, tunneling underground. Fantastic. But are you the charismatic person who's got the skill to communicate that message and develop the marketing strategy? Are you just someone who's got a great idea, but maybe doesn't function as a great leader or a communicator and different things? And that's when you have to expand and make those decisions. But back to the marketing part, Rick, I think what's important is before you begin, regardless of capabilities, what's your plan? Like so you have your organizational plan, right? Whatever it is to get a loan, to share to venture capitalist, or what is your business plan? And the subsections of that go into different directions, which we teach. And amongst that is a marketing plan. Mm-hmm. And Rick, in the end, there's 4 key components to a marketing plan that, need to be addressed, specifically around, what's your value proposition? Number 2 is, who do you want to target? When do you want to target? And how often do you want to target? And, what channels do you want to use? So there's the components as far as the tangibles. The third part gets into, moves away from marketing. Once you identify you have a great product or service and you know where you want to market it, it gets into sales. What's the sales approach? Because the best organizations are marketing-led, sales-driven. Mm-hmm. And in the end, now you have that marketing part to complement now what sales is due and what's your sales messaging, what's your sales plan. So it's a sub plan within the marketing plan. And the last part, the fourth part, which stands out, which people forget to do is, are you measuring the success? So if you're making an investment in marketing and different digital platforms, the plan should always have what are your KPIs to gauge success, and you can check that on a regular basis to ensure you're on track and not wasting money.
It sounds like this would be something you would teach, for example, at the universities and colleges that you teach at.
Yeah.
For an entrepreneur out there who's not attending a college university with teachers such as yourself, how can they find this out? Is it even there?
Yeah, listen, you can go online and find a lot of different things in these messagings. I think the difference is that what's the opportunity? Rick, you and I have benefit of being in front of many entrepreneurs, both who have three concepts. First of all, it's an idea. So I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm working full time. It's an idea in my head. I want to do it. So let me go through a program to get the structure, to get the acumen, to get the networking, different components. Then there's someone who's actually put their idea on paper. So now I actually have a business plan and I have a path forward that I have to be agile with because things change dramatically often. A pandemic, wars, economic conditions, change in political leadership. So you have to be agile on that. But you have a plan that you can at least work off. Once you have that plan and then the marketing part is you can go on videos, Rick, you can check on YouTube, you can go on Coursera, you can go different things and do free workshops, which I encourage people to do. But in the end, do you have someone who's going to help you execute on that? Number one, if you're an independent entrepreneur with just you yourself, you have to pick, am I going to be successful in strategy, operations, marketing and sales, human resources, about hiring people, and just pure leadership? So complex for an entrepreneur, which is why a lot of them are successful because they're generally only good at two out of the five.
Right. And in the earlier days, if it's a small team or one or two people, they're all sharing different hats, right? So who's the CMO this week may not be the CMO next week. But at some point, it sounds like that as the organization grows even a little bit, they've got to take each department seriously, especially the marketing department, and really, again, go beyond just who's handling our social media accounts this week.
Yeah. And the thing is, Rick, is that when you're a startup and you literally just 1, 2, 3 people, whatever it is, and you don't have the marketing expertise between the few individuals that are invested in the organization, the best thing about today is you can outsource that very affordably, right? These contract, CMOs, these contract CHOs, like there's so many different options of viable, even on finance, like contract CFOs. Like you can bring in these people that have multiple clients, or they're not all eggs in one basket, that can come and provide you with temporary expertise while you weather the ship and grow to when you bring in someone who's got that expertise or dedicated efforts to it. And that's when you have to make a decision as an entrepreneur, is that, okay, I have a viable product. There seems to be interest now to go from, step 1 to step 2 of my sales, my business plan with the marketing plan. Maybe I need to bring in either a part-time or full-time resource. And that's what entrepreneurs struggle with, is when am I going to spend money that I don't have? Right. When am I going to truly take the risk of investment? And I think there's good options about being some more tangible. If you can't learn in business school, if you can't learn online, here's some resources you can consider that are affordable, but you have to make that decision.
You know how online there's lots of templates for a business plan. You can find various templates, some from the government of Canada for that matter. I'm just wondering, could we find something called a marketing plan online? Templates?
Yeah, listen, there's a tremendous amount of resources. And if you're not using all the free or semi-free versions of it, then, as a startup, these are the costs you need to consider. And especially you can get a template, and then you can plug that template into generative AI, and generative AI can do it. The challenge with people is that they think that generative AI is going to give them a template by asking it a couple of questions, but they don't know the nuances of your business. You have to know the nuance of your business to truly make sure it's customized to your needs. Then you got to look at it based on what generative AI gave you, which could be something tangible, looks good, but the reality is, can you actually successfully execute on that? Right? Is generative AI going to call you and say, oh, by the way, there's been a swing in the market conditions. You may want to consider this. No, you have to have that pulse. So I think that there's so many complementary pieces to support it, but not necessarily be the end game for what you do. Right.
This is interesting. And I think a lot of people are probably wondering a little bit about you. Maybe you could give us a couple highlights of your background. How did you get into the question's pretty big here. You could go into entrepreneurship, or how'd you get into teaching? Give us a little bit about who you are, Sanjay.
Yeah. And Rick, I'm glad you asked that, because I think it'll complement kind of my perspectives of giving, because I don't want entrepreneurs to watch this podcast and sit there and say, well, what does this guy know? He teaches in the business school. I think the best instructors, faculty are practitioners. And so to answer your question on my background is 10 years ago, I had a full-time job. I worked full-time. I was, director of business development at a company called Life Labs, $700 million company, traditional job. And I was a wannabe millennial. And so I had a side hustle, and that side hustle was teaching nights and weekends at York University. Someone referred me, so I was a guest speaker. They said, I'm taking a semester off. Maybe you want to cover my course. And I did it. I actually liked it. But Rick, I was not very good at it. Okay. I was not. And whether it's evaluations or just feeling good about myself as far as making a difference to the people I was teaching, I didn't feel good about it. And so I made a choice to sit there and say, okay, well, I'm working full time. I have a guaranteed kind of income in my job, somewhat guaranteed. I want to be better at my side hustle. So I went and sought out who are the 2 or 3 best faculty members teaching strategy, marketing, sales, communications. And I sat through their sessions to learn their styles. And after sitting through the sessions, I took components I customized to me that I thought were best practices and implemented. And my evaluations as far as teaching as something that measure my success went up dramatically as a positive way. And then there was things that I owned around subject matter expertise, having an updated content and deck, having something that was highly engaging, but most importantly, listening to the needs of the students. And so I loved that part better than my full-time job. And so at that point, I made a decision. Do I take my side hustle and take a risk as an entrepreneur and go for it? Or do I keep the safe job that I had? And that's when I realized I made the choice to take the risk and be a full-time entrepreneur. I can go on about it, but I don't know if there's a follow-up to that.
No, there's a lot of people out there, I think, that are in that same position where they have a full-time job, as you said, reasonably secure, and they've got a side hustle or they're thinking about starting a side hustle. And maybe that side hustle is more interesting. Maybe it's starting to grow and they're at that, fork in the road where they're trying to decide. So how does an entrepreneur decide to go in all the way?
Yeah, and Rick, and some of the programs you and I are involved with, that's always a dilemma that an entrepreneur is thinking about, right? So it's a concept in my head. I actually now have a business plan, or I'm going for it, whether it's part-time or full-time. It's the full-time one where people struggle with, right? Is they have maybe something secure, or they maybe have small kids, or maybe I'm going to get married, or maybe it's something in their health and their personal life, whatever it is. There's actually never really a good time, Rick.
Right.
Because every day you're taking your time to make a decision to go for it as an entrepreneur is another day someone else is catching up or getting ahead of you.
Right.
And if you have to have a mentality around taking a risk, number one, knowing there's never a good time, and knowing you're going to probably fail a few times, right? I mean, the data suggests that over 90% of entrepreneurs will fail multiple times. We always talk about the success examples of, whether it's, Steve Jobs or, Bill Gates or Elon Musk. Those are outliers. They're outliers. But just to have like a $1 million, $2 million company is different. And so when I decided to go be an entrepreneur as a gig educator, meaning I couldn't replace my salary, I had to replace it with multiple gigs, because teaching in the business school, teaching courses full time, did not replace that. So I taught at multiple institutions at the beginning of my career. I was driving from multiple education institutions, college, university, till I finally settled after 2 years, into a couple universities, which paid double what college paid. Number one. Number two, had resources like TA and infrastructure and reputation. But I was still not satisfied at that point. I was doing well. I'd replaced my income. I was a gig educator. I had flexibility, but I had a higher ambition to be an entrepreneur.
Tell us a bit about, because we can see the passion that you have for teaching, but you don't just teach in the classroom. I mentioned at the top that you're a bit of an author and a speaker. Could you tell us a little bit about that author-speaker side of you?
Yeah. And so, Rick, the thing is that to go to the next level, what credibility are you adding as an entrepreneur? So it's one thing to have a great product or service. In this case, the service I was providing was training and development. It's pretty good, right? So that was my first thing. That was what I was doing. And what I did was I successfully had 3 or 4 brokers feeding me business. So in this case, it was institutions. It was education, executive education. Yeti was one of them. So you had multiple people feeding you business, and I had to perform. Now, at the same time, once I achieved that, again, there's a whole bunch of people knocking on the door wanting to take the gig that I had. I'm a consultant. I'm a trainer. I have wisdom. And so that's when writing the book, developing tools, adding credibility, continue to educate myself, constantly learning. So here I'm teaching people, but then again, what am I teaching myself to learn to get better? But most importantly, the best impact was having a mentor.
Yeah.
And having a mentor guided me, coached me, comfortably told me about the challenges I'm going to face, and question how it's going to overcome them. And so that went from, okay, now I'm a good entrepreneur. How to become a great entrepreneur? These are some of the tools I have. And the book helped add credibility, but I was not done yet.
Wow. It's a progress, and it's a continuation, just like entrepreneurship, right? And people talk about how a business plan is a live document, meaning that you have to revisit it. I would assume the same for sales and marketing plan, but it also seems like the life of an entrepreneur, the professional life of an entrepreneur, you're always modifying, right? I mean, just talking to you, it sounds like you're always looking and evaluating yourself and your tools,
Yes,
and saying, what can I do better? So let's talk a little bit about Yeti, since you brought Yeti up. You've been with Yeti teaching since the beginning, 2013.
Yes.
Long time ago. I don't want to ask a strange question, but is there anything different about teaching at Yeti than there is at the other teaching gigs for you?
Yeah. Well, what's much more different is when I'm teaching at a larger institution, there's an infrastructure in place, and those people have access to more resources, and they're young adults. The thing I loved about Yeti is also being part of the growth. I mean, there was a point where I was teaching at a community center at a municipal building, because that was the facility Yeti had. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm teaching in a boardroom at City Hall in Vaughan. It was just so unique, going through the challenges, the partnership that they had with the business school, which is how I introduced, was fantastic. But the growth of Yeti into, eventually having its own space, having its own branding, and being independent of a partnership of an institution was phenomenal. But what I loved about it is I got to work with entrepreneurs based on startup and hear about their journey, right? It inspired me to go through mine, which didn't start until 10 years ago, because I was exposed to, these like-minded individuals that were working full-time and trying to take the risk of going through a diploma program or a startup program, accelerator program, just to say, do I have what it takes? What do I need to do what it takes? And Yeti provided that. So I actually, even though I was teaching on a specific subject, I also got the opportunity to learn from not just the students, but peers like yourself.
Thank you. I find Yeti's been one of the greatest education of my life. Even just watching other teachers, that is, in the beginning, we had to. This is just a funny Yeti story. The main program advisors, Murat, Oleg, and myself, we agreed, the three of us, that we would watch everybody's lectures, not just our own, but all the teachers' lectures. It was under the guise of quality control, but I think it was more about learning. Everybody could learn something, including the other people. So that was a real great education for me, is to watch everyone's lectures.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because what I will say is, since 2013, my deck would not resemble at all anything I did in 2013, 2020, or even 2020. Right? Because marketing's evolved. I have to learn. I have to evolve. I have to attend conference, get new feedback, new tools. I have to listen to experts way beyond me, and then ensure that when we are servicing entrepreneurs or any participants in a training program, that we're providing with the most up-to-date, relevant content. And I think that's where my peers struggle, right? Is you may be excellent at delivery, congratulations. And that's a big part of it. But at the same time, is your content relevant to an entrepreneur today than it was? Because I don't think it's about generation. I think it's about pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Yeah. Every guest splits their entrepreneurial journey that way. It's so natural to do so. I want to talk about Leonovo specifically for a reason. So I just want to, if you could just introduce that company first a little bit, and then I'll tell you my follow-up question.
Sure. Yeah. Listen, so again, evolving here, I'm a gig educator as an entrepreneur. I'm loving what I'm doing. I have 6 different, organizations feeding me business, and then I have legacy clients, and Yeti would be one of those that I've been with for a long time. Some give more, some give less, but I didn't have all eggs in one basket, which I had to do. But what I realized was in 2020, I said I met someone who's also faculty at the Schuler School of Business, and was a gifted expert on leadership. And so what happened was we started referring each other business out of respect, of skill. But what I also realized about that is that she actually complemented gaps I had as an entrepreneur. Although she had a PhD, she had an MBA in finance. So around specific decisions around, investment, how we manage our books, profitability. So I had ideas on it, but as far as getting the details, she was excellent on that. She also had a different network than I did that complemented mine. And number 3, she pushed me in a way that was not off-putting and gave me comfort that, yes, I could work with someone. So that's when a partnership, that was our second journey. My second journey as an entrepreneur is that I can't go alone. For me to go to next level, I need a partner. And that's what she is. And so that's where Leonova was born.
Mm-hmm.
Is we had a concept where we were referring each other to our own businesses, but then we said, let's just have one pie, one pot. And the trust was there. And so we formalized Leonova, Leo for lion, Nova for innovation, as far as our idea, as far as how we're going to differentiate as trainers in a classroom.
Partnership is a word that I'm just going to pull out from what you just said. Again, I just want to reflect this back to our audience that a lot of entrepreneurs do try to go it alone. And I think it's not wrong, but at some point, the benefit of having at least one partner is just phenomenal, right? The entrepreneur doesn't have to be a lone wolf all the time, right?
No, not at all. In fact, I feel disappointed when people recognize they have gaps, right, in certain parts of running a business. And now you have actually a good service or product that makes sense. And so for you to grow, it's not about investors, it's about someone who can actually help push the product or service, and eventually maybe take a different role of responsibility. So yeah, I think partnerships are, complementary and supportive. A reason why, Rick, a lot of people don't do this because they're greedy. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to share a piece of my pie. I think I'm sitting on a lottery ticket. Why would I want to give up? And that's from watching Dragons Den and Shark Tank, right? When the questions is how much do you own of the company and how much you're willing to give up?
Right.
If you were to sit there and say, well, I own 90% of the company, I have 10% investors, and a shark or a dragon says, well, I want 10%, you still retain ownership. You still have 51%, whatever it is. But at the same time, you have to be humble. And humble is identifying the right person, a right partner that can help support the growth of the company, not just silently.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people do watch those shows, and just as a reminder to the audience, they are staged to some extent. And
yes.
if you've met people like we have, students of ours who have been on the show, there's a lot going on when the cameras are off. But that's another podcast. Remember, I told you I was going to circle back to this question about Leonova. So what I thought would be interesting is if you could share with our audience a little bit about how you applied your marketing plan, your marketing expertise to a new business, new venture. Obviously, you don't have to say everything, but maybe give a few things about, because of your background and your expertise, this is what I definitely wanted to do in the first 6 months of your, or this is something I'm doing now from a marketing perspective.
Yes. Yeah, I think one of the greatest parts about Yeti is that, they start off like, okay, let's get, what's your value proposition? Like, what exactly do you have, regardless of where you are in your startup journey? And then throughout the program, it's putting a business plan together. And then you get people like yourself and me and others who plug in components of it. And so I said, okay, part of your business plan, let's do the marketing section of your business plan and focus on that. So as far as the bigger picture, you have to have that total piece to see how it all plays together. Mm-hmm. I focus on marketing, but I also talk about sales, right? Because in the end, you could have a great idea, but again, if you're successfully doing a communication plan on different platforms, you still need to sell, right? Yep. And they have to complementary. I always sit there and say the best organizations are marketing-led, sales-driven. They have to work together to complement each other. And so, when it comes to Leonova and our business is that, it's an expertise that my business partner has. It may be something I have, but I also want to focus my time on sales and strategy versus marketing. Being a dedicated marketer in your business, a small business, you have to spend a lot of time. At content creation, we have no problem with. Here's an example, right? Here, doing a podcast, putting content, getting someone to do it. We actually found good other small businesses who all they do is social media for us. Mm-hmm, and we tried a few, they were unsuccessful. Then we finally found a couple that we found work really well as far as content, knowing our style, but then also the discipline of posting 3 times a week, but having a story attached to it. Mm-hmm. And so we had the story, we just didn't have the discipline. And finally, we decided to make that investment. And I mean, Rick, to be transparent, we spend $3,000 to $4,000 a month on marketing our business. Mm-hmm. So content's not a problem, but it's like, being here, getting that content, recording it, editing it, and posting it properly in a story. And it's the best investment we've made.
Outsourcing the social media is a good idea for a lot of people, right? Especially as you grow and you're getting bigger, there's other things to worry about, for example, sales and different types of operational strategies. So if you can get the right company to outsource, why not?
Yeah. Right? And, again, like, we don't need a contract CMO. We need the social media because we have the business part kind of went out. But the success of that was ultimately finding, you have to find someone that fits you, that knows you, that understands you and challenges you. And the supplier we have that we settled in after 2 years of searching challenges us and pushes us, because we are two people who get paid to teach in the classroom. I get in front and get paid to tell people what to do. So when someone's telling me what to do, I struggle with that. My business partner struggled with it. This individual knew how to push the buttons properly, and we respect his expertise, and he delivers on the things we have. We've seen a difference. But the one thing, Rick, that always is not just about posting on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's the full gamut, right? Like, so again, we have a book. Then we have digital tools like for assessments, like leadership assessments, decision-making assessments, sales assessments. So we have these tools that we, complement it. But then you're doing podcast. Then, when are you posting and what are you customizing for the platform you're posting on? And are we doing as an individual? Are we doing as a team? Are we doing as a company? Then do we have merchandise, right? Then, are we going to do keynotes? So there's all these different parts of the social media that you have to constantly have content creation to post to show you have differentiation, you have credibility, and people want to continue to listen to you.
That's a good point. And because of all that diversity of the different platforms, et cetera, some people, I think you would agree, they perhaps mix their message by accident. So we see their post on one platform and it's different. The theme is different from a platform. And we're like, is this the same company? Is this the same? Because everything's completely different. And other people argue, no, different social media platforms have different voices. I would say absolutely that's true, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the consistency of the messaging, the branding, right? Yeah. Could you speak a little bit about branding? We haven't talked too much about branding today.
Yeah. I think, for a guy as a communication expert, one thing we can agree on is communication, being consistent, whether it's branding, whether it's your voice, whether it's your vision, your strategy. Listen, sometimes you have to pivot. Things change, your business changed, demand changed. So, that was such a rocket word during the pandemic about pivoting. So if you're not really to do that as an entrepreneur, you'll likely be unsuccessful. Okay. But yeah, you have to be consistent, right? And especially on your branding, like if you land on a name, you land on a vision, and that's strategy as a whole. You got to take some time to cultivate it. You can't just walk away because you think after 6 months you've not had enough revenue to justify it. You have to take the time, you have to be consistent, and people got to believe after a while that, oh my goodness, I've been watching a lot what you're doing and I'm impressed. There's a consistency in messaging, there's a personality, and there's consistency on kind of how you portray yourself and what you have to offer. Right. I get the biggest example I like to give is I was in a small town the other day working with a partner. And we wanted to get some eat in this small community, Stratford, Ontario. And next door, there's a restaurant that had fried chicken and Indian food. And it was like a Seinfeld episode, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to walk in a place because how can you be an expert on two different type of dishes, right? But unfortunately, we were starving and we had nowhere else to go and it was raining. So we walked in and the gentleman with me had the chicken and I had the Indian food. And I got to tell you, it was fantastic.
Oh, good.
And the reason is that they actually made everything in-house. Their marketing sucked though. Right. Because it's very difficult for me to believe you can be an expert on two different things. Plus, if someone wants one type of genre of food or ethnic food, they're not going to trust you can do the other one.
Right.
And fortunately, we got lucky that day. But again, there's no consistency in the messaging. Are you an expert on 2 items, 1 item, 3 items? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And to the discipline that the entrepreneurs need to decide, first of all, not to try to advertise, I'm an expert at 10 things, but separate it, have the proper themes, and then have that messaging, branding, marketing, communication that this is what we do and this is how it melds. So it's like, if we're going to have 2 different things, how does it make sense? If you can tell a story that makes it make sense, okay, go for it. But otherwise, 2 separate websites perhaps, or we'll pick one or the other.
No, and Rick, I'm glad you, again, so once you build a trust with your customers and just consistency, they said, okay, I believe you. So for us, training and development, what we realized a couple of years ago, some of our clients were actually asking us if we can help them with strategic planning, which is consulting, not training and development. So there's synergies to there, but big difference, right? Because we were brought in to do change management for some of our clients after they went through strategic planning exercise, our process improvement, our governance structures. And so sitting on boards is giving me comfort and confidence around governance structures and a lot of training myself on it because it connects to strategy in the end. Yeah. And so what we did was, okay, the economy in the last couple of years has gone through a different turn, especially this last 6 months to 8 months. 2026 is not looking like a fantastic year if you're an entrepreneur or running a business. The data is 1 in 4 organizations will cut staff, right? 40% of people going to work today, April 2026, worried about losing their job. So what are we doing as an entrepreneur at risk when people are the first thing to cut is training development? So we last year acquired a small business on strategy consulting. And so now we have these 2 wings, training development, strategy consulting. But Rick, to be consistent, we keep them separate. Separate branding, separate different organizations, but the expertise is still within the house. So the synergies are on cost savings, but the marketing is different.
I love it. I love it. It's a great lesson for all the entrepreneurs out there that don't do everything, but whatever it is you're going to do and you're really good at it, figure out how it makes sense and tell the story properly. I love it. Do you know why we call it the startup sandwich, by the way?
I was hoping you'd tell me. I'm very curious.
I would tell you. We like to think of entrepreneurship, especially startup businesses, as a sandwich where you've got your foundation like the bread and you've got your meat and veg would be what you do, your product service. But we also think that a good sandwich has a secret sauce.
Yeah.
And so in entrepreneurship, that tends to be some sort of innovation or uniqueness. So what we like to do is ask our guests, and I guess we could talk about Leonova.
Yeah.
If someone asked you, what's the secret sauce for Leonova, what would you say it is?
Yeah. So first of all, you're getting me hungry with these kind of questions. So
You're not the first person to say that.
Yes. I know what I'm having for lunch and what sauce is going to be in there. Listen, everyone's got different secret sauces. So whatever mine's different. But what I will tell you is that part of right now as an entrepreneur, everyone's struggling in different ways, right? And not only that though, I'm a vintage man talking about marketing strategy. So, that's why pivoting our business, that's why, knowing you have to adjust your audience is the thing. But what the secret sauce for me as an individual, even though I have a partner, is grit. Okay. Now, what helps me, and I believe this for entrepreneurs, is that I didn't grow up with wealth. I didn't grow up with, a lot of resources to help support me. I had no safety net. So whatever I did was dependent on me, which is why it took so long to be an entrepreneur, because I felt I had to have a safe, secure job. And I was not good at working for one person. Especially if they were poor leaders. So the secret sauce for me, as far as Leonova and our company, is two things. One is clearly two different roles between myself and my business partner, as well as roles and responsibility. Rick, we're not a large organization. We're 5 employees, but then we have 20 associates that we bring in just based on the contract. So we call, that their gigs, that require certain expertise, we bring them in. But so that's respecting that. I have a responsibility for a small company, which is mainly around business development. And my business partner runs the operations, develops the content, has got the vision. Number 2, the biggest secret sauce is, again, I alluded to it, is grit. Is right now with the economy being what it is you just can't give up. And I actually feel guilty every day where I'm not doing something to help promote my business, to help better our business, or to network. I've probably met this year alone in this quarter ending with probably 40 different people within my network. 20 that I knew before, 20 that were referred to me or knew I reached out to. And of those 40 people, I probably get business from 4. Okay. And rejection, follow-up, ghosting, all that happens. But I'll take 10%, Rick. In this economy, I'll take a 10% success rate. And you can't do it unless you power numbers.
Wow. Excellent. What's in the near future for Leonova? Let's say 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Do you have anything exciting coming up? Any other plans, innovations?
Yeah. So listen, we talked about, we've gone through we're gig educators. We're teaching, having good training in the classroom. So, innovative doing things, experiential learning, all those different things. And everyone caught up to that, right? Then having hybrid programs using Zoom and in person, then everyone caught up to that. Then we started adding, last year we acquired a company around strategic planning. So that was our third pivot. Now the question about what's it look like moving forward. And so this year, our biggest focus is how can we be more efficient? In the absence of hiring people, like every other organization, small, medium, large, how can we use AI to better serve the people whether it's strategic planning, process improvement, governance structures? How can we also support it on better training development? How do we use that innovation in the classroom? I'm not going to teach AI. That's not my expertise. I have other people to do that. But how we apply to our business to ensure if we don't do it this year, we will spend more money, we'll have less profits, and someone else will be more successful in the end. So long term, meaning the next 2 years, if we don't implement different components of AI, number 1. Number 2 is the staff we have, they have to also be updated on how they're utilizing it. The example I'll give you is when we do strategic planning, we have allocated hours for experts, and those experts are expensive. What we've done is we've streamlined our business to use the experts on reviewing the work, but we're actually using analysts to actually do the grunt work. And so it's actually we still bid on the same amount, but our profitability has gone up because the hours of time on projects is less and being less dependent on experts like we used to. And so but it's also given us more time to bid on more projects. So those are kind of the things we're focusing on and implementing AI like everyone else, but it has to happen this year. Otherwise we will fall behind.
Yeah, you got to keep your eye on the prize. We're wrapping up now. Two final questions for you, my friend. One is this is the lob ball question. Any final advice you would like to say to our entrepreneurs out there about anything at all about marketing that we haven't covered today?
Yeah, listen, about marketing is also about patience, right? Is yes, you have to be agile, and there's a lot of people that teach that kind of behavior. But be patient, especially in this economy, right? Like we have no idea. Usually there's certain things that you can predict, but because there's so many different chaoses going on in the world, both politically and non-politically, that you just can't be, you can't plan for it. So I think patience is a big part for entrepreneurs right now, is keep doing what you're doing, keep resilient, keep adding grit to your business, keep meeting with people, knowing that they're not ready. But if they're not ready now, Rick, they may be better. They may be ready in the fall. They may be ready next year. Like I work in education. We both work in education. But institutions have gone through this massive dramatic change, mainly because they're dependent on international students. So if I taught a certain number of courses, in 2024, this year I'm teaching 20% of those courses. And that was one of my steady parts of my income. No problem. Now I have this new business, right? Number two, I'm going to be patient, keep the network alive. And number three, know that in 2 years, it'll get back to that demand.
Yeah.
And if you could hang in there and be patient, while other entrepreneurs either give up, make a wrong decision on strategy, or shut down, you'll be okay. Perfect. And if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place? Oh, leanova.com is our website. Thank you for asking. LEONNOVA. But if you just did a Google search on Sanjay Dhebar, we practice what we preach, and they'll find many ways to get in touch with me. And, whether you want to give business to our company or not, I'd love to have your business. But if you need advice, and it's short and to help you to overcome some of the challenges we deal with, I'm happy to give it for free. What a gift. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Sanjay. Very nice. Always nice to talk to you. Always nice to see, to hear about your journey and go deeper. You've given a lot of great advice to our listeners, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for watching. And be sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you check out your podcasts. Until next time, keep turning small bites into big wins.